Welcome to our first mailbag episode. Behind the screens will feature us talking about different scenarios and offering advice about the things that make DMs pause and think. Let's get into it.
Philly and DG lead the way. New RPG systems every day. Dice roll, quick adventure calls. Walking through tabletops, golden halls. Masters of pen and paper. RPGs of every flavor. Talking about different creators. The choice of games is never greater. Come with us to games they run through. New, old, and interesting. Thank you all for listening.
Welcome to the show, everybody. Really appreciate you checking this out. Episode 5 of Masters of Pen and Paper. I am your humble host, co-host, Mike, aka DG, and this is my main man,
Finny, right here.
Nice to have you in the chair, dude. Another podcast coming at you. And this one's a little bit different than the other ones. We've been doing game systems and the rule sets and talking about those game systems. And it was me. I came to the table and I was like, you know what? I need a little bit of a shuffle. Not to buy me some time to read these game systems, but a little bit to buy the time to read these game systems a little bit.
We've been throwing a lot of information out lately, and
There's a lot.
It's time for a little cool down, a little relax.
Yeah, we're the DMs are requesting a long rest from the party, is what we're currently doing. And so basically, the concept of this episode is that we're going to go through a couple scenarios that get sent in. In this case, we went and we found them because it's fresh. However, if you're interested, if you have a scenario, if you got some questions or you want to give us some feedback, we have an email address.
We did the thing.
Finny, hit us with that email address, buddy.
Our email address is all lowercase, mastersofpenandpaper@gmail.com.
Really hard to remember, considering it's the name of the podcast.
Wow. You're here, so you know where to find us.
That's right. Yeah. So you shoot us an email at mastersofpenandpaper@gmail.com. Let us know a scenario that you're dealing with, and we'll do some commenting on it. We'll let you know what we think. We'll give you some helpful tips. All of the scenarios we're talking about today are around Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. However, I would love to be able to provide advice on the systems that we've covered. Like, you know, if we talk about Traveler or Merkborg or Pathfinder or some of the future episodes that we're going to be dealing with here, I think it would be really cool to be able to offer advice in those systems because the world is full of Dungeons & Dragons advice because it's so popular, and that makes sense. But I mean, you know, there's literally tons of these fans of the other systems out there that they might want their questions answered too.
I do feel like the advice that we do give out here is going to be generic.
It's system agnostic to a degree. It is.
If you're having problems at a table, every system's going to have problems at a table with something of similar importance.
Yeah. And so the other thing too that we might do down the road here is we may also bring in some of the other DMs that we play with or other people that might be interested in joining. So it might not always just be Finny and I. We're working on that as well. But those are things for a future episode. You don't have to worry about that right now.
You guys hear enough of us. It's time to get some new voices on here. Some new blood.
We'll bring in a couple mercenaries kind of thing.
Yeah.
Finn, I think outside of that, unless you got anything else to add, we should just jump into our first scenario.
Yeah. If you'd be so kind as to read out.
Absolutely. I'd be happy to read it. So this comes from the RD&D subreddit, and it's from a user called Decent Hospital 4366. And they say, so I've been running this campaign recently. It's a mid-level campaign where the players start at level 6 and probably end around 11 or 12. It's been going for a few sessions now, but there's one massive problem. Metagamers. Specifically this one guy. Let's call him Brian. Brian is a Hexblade Paladin. He is very well aware of the ins and outs of Dungeons & Dragons since he's been playing for many years. And since he's been playing for many years now. And basically, whenever we have a combat encounter, he already knows everything there is to know about the enemy and tells the rest of the team fighting a horde of hungry zombies, hey guys, they're immune to poison. Fighting a flesh golem, hey bard, they can't be charmed. This came to a head when the party was fighting a Hezro. The wizard was trying to cast spells on the Hezro, but it wasn't working, mostly just because I was rolling well. The wizard was getting frustrated when Brian pulls out his phone and says, hey, look at this, to the wizard. And he showed him the stat block. And I couldn't help but get a little bit angry. I told him to put his phone away, and we got into a total shouting match. After that, I had to end the session. I'm not completely sure what to say to him. I'm afraid no matter what, he'll keep looking up the stat blocks. What should I do? That is some serious information. So in this case here, we've got a longtime player giving the DM a rough go by metagaming. And 3/4 of the way through the story, I was like, okay, this isn't so bad. Until the guy pulls his phone out and looks at the stat block. And that's, in my opinion, that's a cardinal sin.
That is a big, big no-no in my books. If you are sitting at a table playing a game, whether you're the player or the DM, stay off your phone.
Yeah, put the phones away.
The DM has put significant time into this game for you to enjoy. So the least that you could do is pay attention, give it your all, and try not to mix PC knowledge and player knowledge.
Absolutely.
Right? If you need to, ask the DM, say, hey, would my player know anything about this monster? No? Okay.
That's right. Yeah, putting it in the hands of the DM is definitely the right call here. Cardinal sin right off the bat, pulling out the phone and looking up the stat block. That's a big mistake. I think in this case, too, we're dealing with a DM who might be a little bit new. I know they say they've got some experience, right? But in my experience when dealing with this type of thing, especially when you're dealing with a player who has such heavy tendencies to do that kind of level of metagaming, I will change the stat blocks of my creatures. So a creature that is, he mentions in here zombies and them being immune to poison. Well, these zombies are not immune to poison. Maybe they're immune to fire. Maybe they're immune to standard attacks. I will change something in the stat block. It puts a little bit more work on me as the DM.
If they are zombies, resist physical attack.
Yeah. 100%. That is an immediate, easy way to change it. I think the best way to get on top of someone who's metagaming is to get them off their game and get them to understand that their prior knowledge means nothing in this game.
Yeah.
That's the immediate answer to that.
You are in my world now.
Correct.
My
Check
world.
the name tag, Grandma.
It's different from your world because it's mine. Yeah, I agree. Change the stat block. Take that all away from them, and then they can't just look it up, right? Mm-hmm. They have to play the game to figure out what's going on.
Yeah. Calling it that version's Hezro is not the same as this version's Hezro. I think is a really big win. I think he's justified in getting upset of the guy literally pulling out his phone, showing the stat block for the DM.
For sure, he is.
But I will say to the DM, it is important that you set the ground rules with your players in session 0. And if this type of behavior is not allowed, it should have been caught at day 1. I'm going to say 90% on the player, but DM, I got to give you maybe 10% of this. That session 0 is crucial for these types of moments. You identify in that moment, listen, I do not allow metagaming at this table. Here are the ways that we deal with this. I've changed some of the stat blocks for the monsters. I've blah, 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 blah. Whatever the rule set is that you've set for your table, or at the bare minimum, identifying the expectations of your players, that is your spot to do it. Because by this point in the game, I can't help but think that the DMs probably had to deal with this multiple times up to this point. And it is likely a bad habit that has festered and turned into something really awful until it finally blew up, which is essentially what he's saying happened here.
Exactly. And maybe at a later episode, we'll go over how to run your session 0 and what information to lay out to your players as you go through it. But yeah, it should have definitely been laid out in session 0 saying, hey, I don't allow phones at my table. If you're going to have them, if you need them, put them on vibrate, put them in your pocket if you're expecting a phone call or in case somebody has to get a hold of you or something. But other than that, please leave it alone and pay attention.
Now, I'm somebody who like is a very mindful for these types of things. So if this was my game and you had a player or players who were really bad about constantly being distracted, my rule at my table would then be very simple. Each time I catch you distracted, you will have disadvantage on your next roll. Period.
Ooh.
Full stop.
Yeah.
You'll watch your players get in line, or they'll leave the table, which in that case the problem sorts itself out too.
Yeah.
If you're at a point where you're laying down ultimatums with your players, I mean, if they were to leave, is it really the worst thing in the world?
There is a shortage of DMs in the world.
Mm-hmm.
There are far less people willing to DM a game than there are to play a game. And so the DM has the power here.
Yeah, absolutely. Decent Hospital 4366. That would be my advice, is that I think it's time for your one-on-one conversation with your player to essentially say, listen, that doesn't fly at my table. Don't do it again. If you do it again, you'll be ejected permanently. And then I think it's time for you to set up some sub rules as well. Change the stat blocks on your monsters. That's a really easy one to do, especially if it's low level stuff. Like, for example, if he's saying, hey, trolls need to be lit on fire before they're killed. Okay, they don't need to be lit on fire. They need to be frozen. They need to have acid splashed on them. They need whatever. Insert whatever here, right? That one I think is a lot more manageable.
Just change it enough to throw the player off balance, but not enough to change the encounter.
Exactly. Don't make it harder, just make it different.
Yeah.
And outside of that, I think your best bet here is to set some ground rules. I'm a big fan of the if I catch you distracted, it's disadvantage, because in my opinion, you as the player, if you're distracted, you are at disadvantage, because it would be no different than any of these other things, right? So
yeah. Okay.
Moving on. Number
Next
2
up, from user Current Sympathy 198. Hi, me and my friends played D&D a few years back, and since then we fell out of touch with each other and decided to play again. We're planning on playing over Discord as we've all moved away. I'm generally looking for advice and tips on how to go about it. Thanks for any help.
That's in our wheelhouse, Finney.
It's very much in our wheelhouse because we did that.
This is how we play.
Yeah. So first off, hit up Discord, talk to your guys, see what they are willing to do with you.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a money thing, there are free virtual tabletops.
That's right.
Or no tabletops.
Yeah, you don't need it.
You can do D&D Theater of the Mind. You know, you describe things, everybody gets their dice out, they roll it on the table, as long as you're not... As long as you
have to have
faith.
trust in your players.
Yeah, but on the player side too, it's a game. Don't
it's a game.
Cheat.
If you have to cheat at a game where we're making things up, that says a lot about you more so than me.
If you have to cheat at the make-believe game to make you feel better, that's on you.
Your fun is valid.
You have a whole set of other issues that we can't cover in this.
That's right.
This one. So, you can definitely sit down, make your character sheets, roll some dice on your own tables, and just call out what you get. There are other platforms like I believe Roll20 is free.
Roll20 is free for the basic kit.
Yeah,
I mean, if you're gonna start importing and stuff like that, you're into pay. But if you literally just need a tabletop, that is 100%. Well, we both started on Roll20.
We did.
That was where we started. It gives you a set of dice, gives you the ability to have somebody as the DM and put a map in there with some tokens. It's not going to be exactly what you're looking for, 100%, but it will do the job.
Exactly. And then there's of course, paid tabletops, like the virtual tabletops that we use now.
Yeah. Like your weapon of choice would be Foundry.
Yes and no. It depends on the system that we're running.
Sure,
but
sure.
Yes.
Because we do Dungeons and Dragons on Fantasy Grounds.
Yes.
And Fantasy Grounds works great.
It works amazingly for Dungeons and
for
Dragons.
For D&D. The only downside with Fantasy Grounds, and I think you nailed it as you were talking about at the beginning, is that it's a money thing. You either need the DM to have the Ultimate license, which they dropped the price on from when we originally bought in, so it's not nearly as bad as it used to be.
No.
Or everybody has to have the Standard Edition, so there's a cost in it.
On top of that, you have to buy the books through them.
Then you got to buy your content. Yes, that's right. So you buy your system core, and once you get the system core, you could build it yourself if you want to, but it is so much easier just to buy a module.
That is a one-time sink that I am not willing to because that is ridiculous.
It's a lot of work.
There's other free ones out there. Off the top of my head, I can't remember. There's Owl something.
Was it like Owl Bear Rodeo, I think it's called?
Yeah, I think that's the one. Again, if you search around hard enough, there's some free ones, but honestly, to start out, I would just print off some player sheets and roll some dice at home and just do it over Discord just to see if you and your buddies still want to do this.
And that's what I was going to actually jump on is you should host a session 0 and identify that this is actually something that you want to do, 1, and that you can do 2, because both of us can attest to this. Playing online is significantly different from playing in person. When you're playing online and you're sitting in front of a computer, there are a load of distractions on that screen that's going to pull you away from the game and make it a lot harder for you to pay attention. And if there's no map, if you're doing it pure theater of the mind, it's really hard to follow in those cases.
Yeah. And that's where the DM will have to be kind of a little more lenient with some of the rulings. Like, am I close enough to swing my axe at it? Sure.
Yeah.
In my head, you were 15 feet away, but in your head, if you're close enough, then go for it.
We'll make the difference.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. I brought up a list of the 11 best tabletops from this website, hipstersanddragons.com. I don't know. But 1, 2, and 3, Roll20, Foundry, Fantasy Grounds. Those are your primary 3 that are system agnostic, right? You've got D&D Beyond. They're going to have their own thing. They're going to, they kind of do their stuff, but that's just Dungeons and Dragons. That's completely separated, right? Outside of those main 3, then you've got Beyond Tabletop, Game Master Engine, Tabletop Simulator. We've used Tabletop Simulator, Tailspire, and then Owlbear Rodeo. Right. And so those ones, I mean, there's loads of VTTs, virtual tabletops out there that you can use. I think before you look at a system, it's more important to identify that this is something that's going to work with your group, right? And the system kind of ends up coming after. There is a big decision with that system in that once you invest in that platform, you're with it. Right? Like Finney said, you've got to buy all those modules, those books, and those rule sets. And so if you're gonna go in on Fantasy Grounds and you're gonna spend the $60 on the Ultimate license, and then you're gonna drop another $80 on the core, and then you're gonna drop another $100 on
45 on Tashes,
and things start to add up real fast. Be darn sure that your system of choice is the one that you're actually after.
Make sure it's your glass slipper, because if it don't fit, that's gonna hurt.
That's right. Now, with that being said, some things that I could say from our point of view that definitely have helped: headphones and a microphone or a headset, because feedback is in fact a thing. So it's really important that the other side either has noise canceling or has headphones on. And webcams have been incredibly helpful for immersion into the game. I found, especially when I was DMing, having the webcam, I could really look at each of the players and determine whether or not they were listening and paying attention to me. And then if I caught them not paying attention, I would specifically call on them to get them to snap into it and be like, "Huh? What? Huh?"
Yeah. And that's another thing, like you said at your session 0, you lay it out and say, hey, if we're going to do this, you guys have to set apart, 2 hours, 4 hours, whatever of your day, night, morning / whenever that you are here. And in your mind, you are here to play this game, because I, as the DM, have put a lot of thought and effort to make this
likely
happen.
money.
And likely money. Yeah, unless you guys are going to be pitching in with me, but
hey, I mean,
which is always something you can ask your table.
That's a way to show that the party's serious about playing the game too, though. If everyone's willing to pitch in $40 or something like that, I mean, hey, that's a way to kind of make sure that everyone's actually serious about it. So that is a way to do it. It's just that's pretty unlikely, I think, because to get that one to fly.
Like we said, DMing virtually is expensive.
It is. Yeah, it's not cheap. It's just as not cheap as DMing in real life.
I dare say it's almost more.
It can be, but it depends, because Fantasy Grounds, for example, they throw a sale every week. So if you're buying the sales, you're catching discounts. And it's a lot easier for me to spend $8.99 on a digital copy today than it is to spend $16.99 on a physical copy tomorrow, kind of thing.
That's fair. Yeah.
So I mean, it's one of those things. If you're looking to get in like now, all one shot, there's not going to be a difference. We're a testament to it working. We've been playing our D&D game for 5 years now.
Yeah, 5 years.
I think it's been just over 5 years now. We've been playing pretty much every Sunday.
Yeah, and it does take some work on everyone's end just to make it work, but it's a thing. And since the time that wasn't, the COVID era, as it were, virtual everything has gotten a lot easier
and better. Everything's actually, the quality across the board has increased exponentially.
Talk with your players, see what will work best for you. You can just do it straight off of Discord with your pen, paper, dice, done. To start would be probably the easiest thing in the world to do.
Just do it. A Discord call is completely free.
Exactly. All right. On to the next one.
Yeah, let's jump into this next one. So we've got one from user Peony Park that says, hey, I'm new to this community. I never actually played before. I was going to apply to be in someone's party who recently posted in the looking for group subreddit, but I saw so many questions I wouldn't begin to know the answer to. Do you have any advice for people who have never played before and have only watched the game being played? Is Dungeons & Dragons the kind of thing where you shadow people before you play? I think most of my friends would make fun of me for asking, if not, just baseline be uninterested in playing. I just really appreciate the game from watching Dimension 20 and Critical Role and think it would be amazing to get to play. Peony Park, the only way that you're ever going to get to play is to play, period. However, how do you get started with the game, I think, is a loaded question, because the type of game you want to play will dictate the type of table you want to get to, right?
Yeah.
Not all DMs are created equal. Not all games are the same. And the only way to find out what you do and don't like is by literally playing the game. I think being worried about what your friends think, etc. I don't think that's really a thing, right? I mean, if they're not interested, they're not interested. If unless you're like literally chasing after them for it, I would say if you ask them and they're like, "Hey, I'm not interested in that," and you drop it, I don't think there's ever going to be any really ramifications for that. Dungeons & Dragons isn't the game that it used to be, right? It used to be that sweaty nerds in the basement type game. Now it's cool. It's in the ethos. Oh, have you seen Stranger Things? They play Dungeons & Dragons on Stranger Things, right? It's out in the pop culture.
This post sounds like they might be a younger person. Maybe high school. Do you remember high school, DG?
Well,
I know it was a long time ago.
It was a long time ago. They said in the post that they're 21.
Oh, okay.
But still young. That's still young in my opinion.
That's still look at us old guys talking about it. No, at age 21, your buddies should.
It's not the coolest thing you could do, if that's what you're thinking. But I think that if you're posting on the Dungeons and Dragons subreddit, look, man, like what you like. Don't worry about what other people think.
Exactly. The looking for games, find a Discord that would be receiving of someone at a table. I know there's lots of Discords that just do Dungeons and Dragons over Discord.
Absolutely.
And they get a room of like you know 5 people together, one's a DM, and they just play for a few hours and call it good.
I find that most tables want a new player at their table. Most tables want someone who is brand new to the game for one simple reason. They don't know how to be a bad player. And they're going to listen to the DM because they want to be there, right?
And us as players want to spread our nerd culture because we're
I
losers.
love teaching new people how to play. Dude, that's one of my most favorite things on the planet to do, is to teach a new person how to play Dungeons and Dragons, and as a gift to them, give them their first set of dice.
Yeah.
Welcome to the hobby. Here's your first set of dice.
Set of dice is cheap.
They're so cheap, and it's just I find that dice seems to be the thing that is like, wow, yes, I'm in. My advice for Peony Park is very simple. If you have a local game store, go there.
Yeah.
Because the local game store will have a collection of people just like you who want to play this game, and they will fit you into one of those games very easily. There
will be a lot of tables there that are looking for players.
Absolutely. There's never a shortage. If you have a friendly local game store, that is the catch. Some places may not have it, and in those cases, then yes, I would seek out the online resources. But I would go so far to say that I don't think online tabletop is the best way to learn how to play. I think playing in person or tactile, the act of rolling dice, physically rolling dice, is really the game seller in my opinion. And as far as it goes for online, it just doesn't have that same energy, right? When you're sitting at a table and everyone else is around the table and you're able to lean over to the guy beside you and work out a plan, you talk about it, the DM setting things up, it just feels different than the online version does. The online version's great, but the in-person is the way. For sure.
The only thing that the online has over the in-person is the automation of everything.
Absolutely. Which is why I would say that it's not ideal for a new person, because
it's running instead of walking first, right?
Understanding how all those parts fit together, how it works to add a proficiency bonus and a modifier to your dice roll.
Yeah.
For your damage, or for your attack.
Teachy. Proficiency doesn't get added to damage.
That's why I corrected myself right away.
You ding dong.
And see, there you go. I should be playing more in person. The other thing that I did want to mention to you, just as a kind of a sub point, they mentioned at the bottom of the post that they appreciate the game from watching Dimension 20 and Critical Role.
That's what I was going to chime in on.
And I really think it's important that you temper your expectations. Brendan Lee Mulligan and Matt Mercer are professional voice actors and professional DMs. Not all DMs are going to meet this. I would go so far to say no DMs are going to meet this level. They are on a completely different level.
They set that bar a little bit further than the moon.
Yeah.
And there's no way to catch up to that. So, temper your expectations. Because
there.
It's not going to be the same.
No.
It's going to be good.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be the same.
I mean, I watched Dimension 20 and Critical Role, and they're entertaining, but it's like a flavor of Dungeons and Dragons. You know what I mean? Like, it's not... I watch that and I go, wow, this is cool. There's no way this would work at my table.
Yeah,
right? Like the second that they start monologuing something, one of the players is like, I cast fireball, and then that's that, right? Like, end of story. The monologue is over. It's not the same thing. So I would caution you that it is very important that you watch some other games. Twitch and YouTube are full of live action D&D. We stream our game on Twitch on Sunday nights. You can come check out our game if you want. It's a lot closer to the pin, I think, of what you should expect from a standard Dungeons and Dragons game, where the DM is leading the party is conversing and telling a story together.
And we are far from professional.
We are not Brendan Lee Mulligan. We are not Matt Mercer.
No. There's a lot of arguing.
There's a lot. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Rule checks and it's realistic.
Yeah. So so that would be the advice for that one there. Finney, why don't you jump into the next one, pal?
Next up we have thank you.
What is this? Cherry bomb. 16.
Yeah, 16. Hi. I've never played D&D before and I'm just learning the basics. I'll be joining a newly established party on their next campaign in 5e.
Okay.
And I am trying to craft my first character. I'm reading the PHP and looking through online advice and forums, but there's so much information it's starting to feel overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
I'm beginning to flesh out the story of a half-orc paladin. Any advice, resources, good for building that type of character, or any advice resources in general, that would be greatly appreciated.
That is, I'm so excited for you.
Yes.
To build your first character. That is a special character. Welcome to the crew.
That first character is something you will never forget.
No. I can think of a really awesome story for a half orc paladin. You know how they were like abandoned at birth and taken in and raised in the order, and they've been brought forward with a set of rules that an outcast like them may not always have. I think that's really cool.
The only thing I will say, do not go too far with your backstory.
That's correct. Yeah.
Your character is level 1, maybe.
Yep.
Whatever level they are, make their backstory accordingly. Yes, level 1 characters are better than commoners.
Mm-hmm.
Barely. They are not God slayers yet.
That's right. Yeah. They got a long way to go.
They do. So, he did not kill a dragon and the order brought him in because he's this famous dragon slayer and started at level 1. That doesn't happen. That's not a good backstory.
So how it works.
It's a great backstory for a level 15 to 20 character.
For sure.
It is not for level 1.
Yeah. I would say I would agree with you. Focus on creating the character, not necessarily the story.
Yeah. And I would say now get off of the online forums and
I was gonna say the same thing.
Just get off of all of that.
Yeah. Forget what the best paladin build that I can find.
Do not chase meta, quote unquote. It's
Don't do
bad. Don't.
Yeah.
It's not bad. Don't do it. Nobody likes it.
It's handcuffing is what it is, right?
It is.
Because if you look at that sheet that says here's how you play the best paladin, and you pick the spells according to this is how you play the best paladin. Number 1, that's not how you play the best paladin. That's how you play that person's best paladin. And number 2, that person's best paladin is not in your game. So it's really crucially important that when you're creating your character, like you said, you don't need to have this giant backstory like, well, 6 eons ago, lightning struck the mountain and da-da-da-da-da-da. No. I literally said it in the beginning. Half orc, abandoned at birth, brought to the order, raised on a set of rules. You're a strict rule follower. You hold up the tenets of your god, whatever it is, and whatever type of paladin it is that you end up going. There's your backstory. It's a paragraph, maybe a paragraph and a half at the absolute most, right? But in that, you can now take, okay, my character has a strict set of rules, And one of them is to help the needy. Well, it would make sense now that one of your spells is something that would help the needy.
Yes.
And this is the way that I build my characters. I look at what my character is, and then I apply a weapon, a weapon type, magic, whatever it is that character uses that kind of best fits in. It may not always be the most damage. It may not always be the best set of spells. But I promise you, every time that my turn comes up, I have a way to basically say, this is what my character's thinking, this is why they're doing what they're doing, and here's the reason why we're doing this piece here, why we're here. And it's like the story just flows out automatically because everything is built around the core of that character.
Yeah. Make that character your character.
That's right.
If need
Don't worry
be,
what other people think.
If need be, insert yourself into that character. That. I'm going to be perfectly honest. Everybody's first character is them with a sword and shield,
Of course.
them with a wand shooting magic spells. That's how the first character always happens to be.
Because that's badass.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, don't chase meta. Don't look for
Don't worry
somebody's
about what's
best
the
build.
quote best.
Yeah. Make something that, I mean, you haven't played yet, so you don't know what's fun. But
Yeah. This is an opportunity to ask your table too.
yeah,
The people you're playing with.
make a character that you would be interested in playing. Something that would give them a flaw, give them a virtue, and have to just work off that. He's a half orc, so he's got anger issues, but he follow the rules and help
Is to keep them in
the
check.
poor. Yeah. So there you go. All of a sudden, you got anger man that helps the poor, right?
Finny, did you just create Worf as a character?
I mean-
I think you did.
Don't tell
but
anyone.
That's basically it, right? I know in the request you had asked for resources. As far as it goes for resources, your player's handbook, obviously. Any supplemental books that may be within the world that you're playing in, if Tasha's is in, if Xanathar's is in, any of those things. But truth be told, most of the time, everything that you need is within wherever your character's subclass resides. If everything resides in Player's Handbook, I tend not to go outside of Player's Handbook.
I would say that if you are starting and just learning the basics, Player's Handbook. That's
Stick
it.
to the Player's Handbook.
Yeah.
There are spots in the Player's Handbook, like for example, if you're going to play a ranger, don't play the Player's Handbook ranger. Play the Xanathar's rangers. They're better. Or the Tasha's rangers. They're better too.
Play the Player's Handbook ranger, and then your second character make it out of the supplements because
That's right.
you will have a lot more fun. No,
Yeah, it's all about setting baselines. It's
exactly.
setting baselines.
Yeah, and since you're starting out new, everything's going to be fresh and new. So try
That's fair.
the ranger. It's not going to be fun.
Yeah.
No, it'll be okay. It will not be very fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, as far as resources go, Player's Handbook, and I would leave it at that because you're going to have a tough time. You're going to be learning all the rules. You're going to learn all your spells, all your everything's.
You're definitely going to have your hands full.
It's just going to be a slog to get through. So stick with the basic Player Handbook and then just go from there. And as you get more comfortable with the game, then you start grabbing the supplementals and adding to it. Don't worry about what all of your other players at your table are doing. Just focus on yourself and make a character that you are excited to play. All right.
Okay, so this next one, this one's a fun one. This one comes from The Stale Donut. It goes like this. After a small zombie encounter, the barbarian was bitten by a zombie. He believed he would soon turn into a zombie and that he needed to cut off his arm. The rest of the group, and myself out of character, assured him that he would not be. But The player himself is determined to lose a limb and replace it with a prosthetic arm with a built-in cannon made by the party's artificer. I'm unsure how to go about this situation since I'm apprehensive on giving him an Iron Man hand cannon, and the rest of the group also dislikes the idea of having one of the tanks and biggest DPS becoming one-handed for a while. But the barbarian player believes that I'd be ruining his fun by not fulfilling his hand cannon goals. How would other DMs handle this situation? And he adds in a bonus, to be clear, he wants an arm prosthetic that can still wield two-handed weapons, but can switch to a cannon of some sorts as a bonus action. This is a loaded one, Finn.
Ooh, literally, yeah. Well, first off, let's go.
First off, DM, it's your game, not the player's game.
That's right.
If you do not want him to have a hand cannon and he thinks you're ruining his fun, well, he can pick up his dice and go home.
Yes. Secondly, y'all are adults. Talk about it.
You can figure this out. You can talk about it. Most of the time, a conversation will resolve these problems.
Yeah. Not a shouting match. A conversation between two adults that are trying to enjoy something. What I would say next is I'm a sucker for rule of cool.
Oh, 100%.
I am terrible for it. If my players want to do something, I'll try and make it work.
Yeah.
But something like this, I would say, yes, you can have the hand cannon, sure. But it's going to take a full action to swap from a cannon to a hand.
I was literally going to say the same thing.
And it's going to have the reload trait. So you have to spend another bonus action reloading every round if you want to fire that thing off.
Absolutely.
That way it makes your player think about the times that he wants to use it. Oh, and since he's a barbarian, he doesn't get proficiency with it.
I was going to say, I don't think rage should affect it either.
No, because rage is a ranged attack. Rage doesn't count on rage.
I think it's melee only.
Can't remember.
But I will check it really quick while you kind of make the rest of your point.
And it gives your player something to think about, because if they're going to take a full action to swap from this hand to this cannon, then that is their turn basically. And if it's a bonus action to reload, you get an action to shoot it, a bonus action to reload, and that's the end of your turn. You can move. You have to always carry a single-handed weapon with you as well, right?
For sure.
You can't just. I mean, you can hold your two-handed axe in one hand and shoot, but
you can't swing it though.
But then you can't reload.
You're gonna have to drop the axe or stow it, right?
Exactly.
And that would be part of that action, in my opinion. It would be stowing the axe, because your other hand has to maneuver this thing in order to pull it off.
You got to pull some levers, turn some things, pull the hand off.
I 100% agree with dropping the action. And by the way, Rage, page 48, Player's Handbook, very clearly states, when you make a melee weapon attack using strength, you can gain a bonus to the damage roll that increases as you gain levels as a barbarian. So not only do you have to make a melee attack, but you have to make a melee attack using strength, right?
Yes.
So dexterity does not play into this whatsoever. And the reason why I was sure of that is because I played a dexterity-based barbarian, and I already knew that as part of it, right? Yeah. I 100% agree with you. I am all in on Rule of Cool. If this player is saying, you know what, I need to get this arm off, I need to have the arm cannon thing, this is what I want. I want my character to basically be Iron Man or Mega Man or whatever. I agree. I would also put in the same stipulations as you. It would take one action in order to pull this out. So if you're raging, you've lost your rage by dropping your axe and removing your hand to make an attack. Unless you've got somebody beating on you, which wouldn't make sense, because then you would be doing the firing ranged in melee.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't think that this is going to be that much of a game changer. I think your barbarian is thinking this is the way I can close the gap as a barbarian to get that shot off before I run into melee. But by imposing a penalty to both attach and detach this arm would essentially make that barbarian have to think about this a little bit better.
Yeah. And
you're not taking it away. You're just making it a little bit smarter.
That's what we're trying to say here. We're trying to say, don't take it away. Give it to them, but
don't let it break the game.
With an asterisk.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, you can have it, but it takes the full action, so you lose your turn. It takes another bonus action to reload. And you don't get to rage while you're doing it.
I would say that you could still move while you're doing it, right?
Oh,
I could think that while you're running, you could be messing around with this, but it would be your main action.
It becomes part of your action. So
instead of attacking, you're messing around with this thing. And if you want to put it back, it's going to take your action to do so as well.
Exactly.
Yeah. I don't think this is a game changer. I think this is a perfect example of a player who wants their character to be different than book barbarian, right? And a barbarian, I get it, because I don't connect with barbarians. Barbarians are a character that I really, really want to love, but I just don't. Like, the rage and the swing is just not my thing. I need a little bit more of a complex character than that, and I would say that's probably what this character is going for.
They're looking for uniqueness.
They want their thing.
They want a gimmick. They don't want to be typical raging barbarian, like you said. They want something else.
We got one more here, Finn, and why don't you take this one?
All right, this one's from Redacted. So I'm going to start running a campaign soon for a close group of friends, and I just want some advice. So one of my players has a habit of metagaming a lot and trying to become the most powerful and blow through encounters and just really be annoying to the player and DM. So I just want any advice that might help. Talk to them.
100%. So we were speaking earlier about the beginner character creation. This is what happens when you go online and find a character.
Yeah.
This is what happens.
The rest of the table does not enjoy this either.
No.
I would say talk to your player and say, look, keep the metagaming to a minimum. All right? Mm-hmm. Try. If you can't try, I will have to change things. I don't want to change things because it's a lot of work on my end. So let's work together to play this game so that everybody enjoys it and not have to the DM don't have to fret about you steamrolling my encounters and leaving all the other players behind.
So, I mean, obviously the easy answer here is eject them from your table, but you'll eventually get to a point where you don't have anybody left to play at your table. So leave that as like, there's no hope for this player. Right?
I'm not much of a believer of kicking them out of the game. If they're there to play, I can't fault them for wanting to enjoy the game.
100%.
Playing the game the way they play.
You have to start with a conversation.
Yeah.
You have to identify to this player, hey, that's not cool. Don't do this no more.
Yeah.
We said it earlier. This is my expectations of the players at this table. These are session 0 things that need to be hammered out before you even start playing the game. However, if we have that conversation, if we have that session 0 and we have a one-on-one conversation and I've got players coming to me saying, hey, so-and-so is doing this and it's really ruining our game. Well, I got to tell you, if there are 6 people on this side that are saying that one person's causing a problem, I will eject you from the table. I will give you one final conversation, though.
Yeah.
I will say, listen, we've talked about this. Session 0 happened. We had talk, blah, blah, blah. This is the final time we're going to speak about this. If you do not stop doing this action, min-maxing, metagaming, whatever it is that you're doing. In the case before, we had the guy pull his phone out, right, and show the stat block.
Yep.
If you do not stop doing this, there will not be a seat for you at this table. It's that simple. And you have to have the conversation with him or her very directly. There cannot be any beating around the bush. You need to make it crystal clear that this is unacceptable behavior and you're not going to stand for it.
Yes, because the second you don't, you're going to get walked over and
100%.
Nothing's going to change.
Yeah.
The rest of your players are going to leave and you're going to be stuck with this metagamer.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the party dissolves and everybody leaves and nobody's happy.
And it falls apart. There is an alternative to this this problem. And Finney, I know this is one of your favorite things. Your session 0 should be a level 0 campaign.
It should
and a level 0 campaign means that we show up with a handful of characters. Just a boatload of them. And we pit those handful of characters against a little goblin raiding party.
Yeah.
Now, those handful of characters are not level 1 yet. They are farmers. They are butchers.
They are cobblers.
Whatever.
They are whatever. They are street
They're commoners.
urchins. Yes, they are commoners.
And what you do is you have all of these characters face off against the goblins and defeat them and become that town's heroes. And the ones that are left standing are the players that the people play.
That's right.
And those are your new PCs.
And
that eliminates the min-maxing problem. It won't eliminate the metagaming problem. That's still something you got to identify for session 0. You have to be clear. We don't do metagaming here. But
yeah,
since they're being given a character and they're not creating one, min-maxing ends up dying off.
The randomized characters really helps with that part.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
it requires a specific kind of table. Some people might not want the character generated for them, but this is the type of scenario I'm going to propose for my next game, which is essentially we're going to have a scenario where you'll become the heroes of the village, but you're going to have to earn it.
Nice. Yeah. Boy, have I got a system for you, buddy.
I do tell.
Our next episode, I believe, is going to be a little system called Dungeon Crawl Classics. And they actually do that. They have a funnel built into the core system where you take your level 0s, you generate 4 of them or so, and you run through a mini dungeon, and whoever survives gets to become your player or your character.
What a genius way to create characters.
It is.
I love the concept. It is so smart.
It's one of my favorite things of it. But we'll get into that.
And the system's good too.
You will get into that next time.
I can't wait to talk about that. That's going to be episode 6. We're going to be talking about Dungeon Crawl Classics.
Yeah.
Finn, we got a couple things here to kind of close the show out with.
Okay.
It's kind of basically DM opinions. What do you think about rolling dice as a DM? When you're rolling dice, would you prefer to roll them open and on the table or hidden behind a screen?
Finney, who started his first DMing campaign, would definitely roll behind the scene.
Okay.
Finney now, it's wide open, baby. Let the dice fall. Yeah. I roll really well when I'm a DM. And I want my players to feel fear. You do roll very well as a DM, I will say, as someone who's been on the receiving end of that. You know what's funny, Finn, is I'm almost the exact opposite. I think I would have rolled open, but now I would prefer to roll, not necessarily every roll behind a screen, but there are certain rolls that when they're behind a screen, as somebody who believes in the rule of cool and the story matters above all, when that player wants to make that epic attack and it needs to connect because the story is hinging on this one point, it's going to happen. Yeah.
That roll is going to happen. Now that roll can't happen if you're rolling it out in the open. Sorry. That roll might not happen if you're rolling it out in the open.
Yeah.
That roll 100% can happen if it's behind the screen. That is where I have, as a DM, that's where I have kind of fudged the numbers just slightly. No, I do not agree. I do not believe in fudging the numbers in character death in stuff that doesn't matter. But I think if it's one of those moments where the rogue jumping off the table with a backflip, loosing an arrow at the big bad evil guy who's on his like last legs, about to kill his friend who's across the way, that is the moment where if the table is all in, I will push that D20 over a little bit to make that happen. Consequently, if the moment would be just as dramatic if it goes the other direction, I will let that die roll.
Yeah.
As is.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I make those calls kind of on the fly, which is why I think rolling them behind the screen, that gives me that DM super ability to make sure the story is number one. The players are number one and their story is number one. Not my story, not what I wrote. What I wrote is kind of irrelevant. But that party who has, for 20 minutes, strategized this amazing, like, domino falling over attack, I really think that it's important for those types of things to actually hit their target. Because there's nothing more disappointing than when you strategize for 20 minutes and you roll a 2 and you miss the shot. And then for nothing to happen other than you just miss your turn.
Yeah. I can sympathize with that one. Yeah. I have, in my recent dabblings in other systems, I've become hardened and I want to see my PCs die.
I think on PC death, I think PC death should be rolled out in the open. As a DM, I think if that's the case, that those ones should be rolled out.
Yeah.
The only ones that I would even consider moving the dice for would be very pivotal story point moments where even if the dice weren't rolled, I would probably want to see the story roll in that way simply because of the effort put on behalf of the players.
Yeah. I mean, short of divine intervention, I guess, how do you make that work?
Exactly.
Yeah, and we covered everything now. No fudge rolls. Don't fudge
all
rolls.
The rest, I don't believe in fudging the numbers for everything at all. I think that is a sword that is only wielded under absolute most dire situations. There was a point in my last major combat where a player got mind controlled and was about to kill the other player because they were mind controlled. And in that case, I fudged the roll.
Yeah.
Because it would have added no dramatic effect to the story. All it would have done was upset the other player. Actually, it would have upset both of the players because the other one didn't want to do it either. And there was just nothing. There was nothing to glean from that happening. It was actually a lot more dramatic for the sword when the player was bringing the sword down for it to hit the stone above their head and make that loud cling noise. So they knew that this person was essentially had their mind taken over.
Yeah.
And then they were able to knock that out. Right. Like those are the spots where I think as a DM, and it comes with experience to identify them. You have to be able to see what are the options. If I let this go, if I don't let this go, what are the options in either way? And if I don't let this go, if I let this go and I just let that happen and that player kills this other player, is there anything good for the story coming out of it? In this case, there was nothing. There was literally nothing other than those players being upset. And in those cases, I'm like, no, that's not going to happen. We need to continue the story, right?
Yeah. Typically,
if the player gets hit, goes down, no. Sorry. That was your mistake. You're on your own on that one.
Typically, player-on-player deaths don't usually happen. And they shouldn't happen.
Correct.
There should be no player-on-player deaths ever.
I'm all for that person. I think if I'm not mistaken, that player, the actual damage they did would have killed the player, and I pulled the damage.
Yeah.
I pulled the damage back so that it didn't kill the player, it just hurt them, kind of thing. Right. So there's still a penalty for it to happen. Everything still happened as is. The players didn't see anything different at all, and in fact, I felt the story was better off for it.
Yeah. Because if the character had died at the hands of another character, that puts a very sour feeling in everybody's mouth.
Yeah, it's just not good. It's not
No.
it's not good vibes at the table, and no one's having fun anymore. So I know there's a part here that says adjusting on the fly. As a DM, I think that's your job. I think your job is to adjust on the fly. You are shifting around HP. You are changing ACs. You are putting in a second form to your big bad evil guy. You're doing things, and again, all for the story. If your players roll up and they fireball the big bad evil guy and he's dead, that's not dramatic. That's boring.
Exactly. You gotta make the game. This game, as we always say, is yours.
Yep.
And you can change whatever you want.
That's right.
Now, DM side is obviously changing a lot more than what players do, because players are players. But yeah, for sure, you should be adjusting HP as it goes, because who wants to roll up and in the first 2 hits of combat take out the beholder? Well, that's boring,
or the opposite way. If they roll in on something that, now, all things in context, that matters. If the players seek out something way above their levels, and they know it's way above their levels, and they seek it out anyway, hey, you're on your own. But if the players are fighting something that I created this encounter, and I threw it at them, and it's over the line of what they can handle, you bet I'm dialing that back. You bet instead of the reinforcements that were going to be coming in are not coming in anymore.
Yeah, that monster doesn't get a multi-attack anymore. That's monster gets 1 attack instead. You shift things. I think that's your job as the DM. Is keeping above all the players' happiness at the table and the story that you're collectively creating. Yes,
those are the most important pieces of that game, and it is crucial that you don't disrupt those.
That's another thing we've never talked about. Is it's not the DM telling a story. No, it's the DM laying a story out, and the players interacting with it, and the whole table creates this story and this epic as you go, and it changes and evolves as you go through it. It shouldn't be a plot A, B, C, D, E.
100%.
And you hit those points and done. It should be, fluid.
That's correct. And if it's the way that you were saying, the A, B, C, D, if you're the DM, just write a book. It's easier.
Yeah.
Right. I think the best RPGs, the best experiences with an RPG are those that the DM gives the initial bit to, and the players write the rest of the story.
Yeah.
And the players don't know they're writing the rest of the story. The DM is simply just crafting,
adapting as they go. Yeah.
And that is the adjust on the fly component.
Yeah.
When I'm running games, I'm constantly doing that. And it's simply just to change the way that the encounter is, amp up the drama of the encounter, and make sure that the players are having the absolute best possible experience with that game as they possibly can. I put the Cole's Notes version. I make sure there is a beginning, a middle, and an end, and whatever happens in between that, that's up to the players.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I like fluidity in my story as it progresses, and it's difficult to do.
It comes with practice.
It's difficult to do right. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, it comes with practice. That's the best thing about it. I got nothing else to add, Finn.
Me either. I think that's it.
That's it. That's all. So hopefully you enjoyed this episode. A little bit of a detour from our standard, but don't worry. Next episode 6, we're going to be talking about Dungeon Crawl Classics. You can check out the back catalog of the podcast. It's available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. It's also available on YouTube. You can find that at youtube.com/DadGamingOnline. That's my own personal YouTube channel. I'm also streaming on Twitch. You can watch our D&D games every Sunday night at 9 p.m. Mountain Standard Time on twitch.tv/DGOnline. As well, we have a Discord channel. You can join that. The link will be in the description below. We'd appreciate if you drop us a line. You can email us at mastersofpenandpaper @gmail.com. If this was a podcast that you were interested in, the content inside this was something that you liked, let us know your own scenarios, and we would love to go through them and give you some advice on the air. Anything that I'm missing, Finn?
We'll be throwing these kinds of episodes out sprinkled in between our regular programming here and there. I think we're maybe trying for every 5 episodes or so.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Yeah. It might be a little bit give or take.
Yeah.
I mean, the core of the podcast is still going through the rule sets and introducing you to new systems, but these will be kind of shaken in every now and then.
Yeah,
too.
it's just something to lighten up the mood or pull things
we
back.
We want to talk about you.
Yeah.
We don't always want to be talking about our stuff.
Please give us something else to talk about.
So drop us a line, mastersofpenandpaper@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. And that's it from us. We really appreciate you here hanging out and listening to us. And I hope you have an awesome day.
Thanks for having us.